Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by the Appy Lodge. When it comes to accommodations in East Tennessee, especially up in Sevier County, the Ogle family has been doing it since the national park first opened, literally. And they are so booked up right now with Parkside Cabin Rentals, they wanted me to tell you about another one of their properties, the Appy Lodge, right in downtown Gatlinburg. Great spot. And you can visit theappylodge.com. See it right there on your screen with /TSS. That's the Sports Source. /TSS, you can get 10% off your stay just by checking it out. Go check out their website. Learn more about theappylodge.com /TSS right in downtown Gatlinburg. And there's no better time to get up there than during the holiday season when they get all the decorations up in Sevier County. All right. I want to welcome in the last member of today's panel. Good to have Mark Pancraft back with us. Basketball season's here. Mark, last time we had you here, the COVID was just starting to kick off. So hopefully we'll start to see it die down at some point. Yes. But welcome back. Glad we're going to have basketball to talk about. Mark, of course, as you'll see on the bottom of your screen, former Vol assistant coach, of course, D1 basketball player at Milwaukee. Let's take a look. Let's start with the roster and just do a quick overview. Here's your roster for this year, and it's going to include walk-ons as well. But, Mark, let me ask you, just on paper, what are you most excited about this team? Bigs, wings, guards? What part of this team are you most excited to see?
First and foremost, it starts with Fulkerson and Pons. I think their leadership, I know it's not a skill position, but their leadership, that culture piece, from a position standpoint, it's the wings for me. It's Keon Johnson, it's East Pons. It's if Josiah James slides over and plays the wing. Their length on that wing position provides so much versatility. They can all handle the ball. We'll see if Pons has developed that a little bit more, but that wing position is the thing that got me most excited.
Gentlemen?
Absolutely agree. I think there's so many athletes there, and I think in some cases interchangeable, whether or not they could play off guard, small forward, or big forward, some of those guys. So I think they're really talented there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, and in particular, Keon Johnson, because we've heard so many great things about him from his teammates.
Well, I'll say guards because it includes Victor Bailey, and Keon Johnson's going to be able to play some of that position. Jaden Springer, obviously, you add to that group. Yeah, some of those are interchangeable with the wing spots, but that's sort of the beauty of this roster. There's so much versatility, but because of the guys' potential to play at those two guard spots, I think it's the guards.
Well, so much versatility. Barnes should have more options this year in terms of big lineup, small lineup. In the past couple of seasons, he has not gone real deep in the bench at times. And by the end of last year, he was saying, well, I need to have somebody on me to get more of those guys in there. You've got so many players this year, I could see that being an issue if he doesn't spread the ball around as much, spread the playing time around as much. He has more options than he's had at any time since being here.
Absolutely. And the big thing, when we were over there with Pearl and then with Konzo, you'd have guys that were pretty good. You think of Ronaldo Woolridge, right? He was a pretty good athlete, could come and serve some minutes, but he wasn't really upset about if he didn't play much. And so from a coaching perspective, you've got guys that really want to play, but for me it goes back to that culture to where if he decides to go a big lineup or a small lineup or a more shooting lineup because the team goes zone, and the guys are okay because they trust Barnes and they trust that their time is going to come. Sometimes you get from a culture standpoint inside the locker room, if coaches start yanking guys around and this time you're going to start or this time you're going to get 20 minutes, and because the coach is playing the matchup, it can really bother players as they're trying to get to the next level. I think Barnes and staff has such a great culture that he's going to be able to work around the lineups, and it's not going to affect, guys aren't going to be mad if they're playing, and so I think that culture piece is huge.
Is it a concern, though? You say it's not. Is it a concern, though, that you're now bringing in more 4s and 5 stars into this world, guys who, you beat out of North Carolina, you beat out of Kentucky, you beat out of Duke. Those guys didn't come here to ride the bench, you don't think. Is that going to be a push-pull a little bit with his culture, or no? You think they know what they're getting into?
To me, there are a lot of great coaches that are really good at coaching lesser talent. It is a different type of coach to coach really talented guys. And when I'm messing around with these lineups, all 13 guys can play. You're excited about even Gaines, who doesn't get talked about. He showed glimpses last year. You're like, okay, well now he's going to be a sophomore, put some weight on, he could be good. They got 13 guys that can play, and so it is going to be a challenge to keep those guys not just happy, but fighting for more playing time and not give up halfway through the year. and then you got injury or COVID,
Right.
and now you're throwing somebody out there that's just kind of given up and not been prepared.
Here's the thing too about that, and Mark would know better because he's closer to the program, but so you've recruited over some players, but I think there'll be some players whose minutes are limited, but I don't think they're troublemaker players. I don't think they're chemistry breaking type players. So I think you can get away with that. But I'm excited to see all the different lineups, all the versatility that Barnes has. He also has indicated he's got 5 different players that can play the point guard. I want to see how that plays out too. That's going to be interesting to see that position. They may even have some point forward action like a Dane Bradshaw used to do. So I'm really excited to see all the different combinations he rolls out there.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the freshmen. You mentioned Keon Johnson. There's a lot of talk about the freshmen coming in, but also Victor Bailey, who has gotten a lot of, again, not able to see it, but what you're hearing, a lot of good things about him being said right now, and that's a guy you haven't seen who transferred in and sat last year. In terms of newcomers, Vince, what's your first target? Where's your eye going to first go in terms of these new guys?
Well, the most talked about, I would say, is Keon Johnson because of his athleticism. The thing with him is that I think more so than athleticism that is intriguing and I think makes the biggest impact on this team is his defense. And when you have a guy with that length and athleticism that can on-ball defend, which is an area of weakness last year, I think he is where you start. But then Jaden Springer, with his ability to play the point and play off, and his versatility and athleticism as well, he's right there. And I would not be shocked if those guys start or at least play a lot of minutes out of the gate. And because they are the right character guys, John, to your question of is it an issue with them coming in if they expect to play and they don't play as much as they want, because Barnes and his staff bring in the right caliber guys, even as 4 or 5 stars, I don't expect that to be an issue.
Okay.
I think Anasicki is a huge one for me because it goes back to one of the weaknesses that we'll talk about later with rebounding. Because then if he can be really good and get sound minutes, that pushes up the lineup. Right now, Fulkerson can play 4, which he's got a better chance of rebounding and defending that position. Now it pushes Pons up to more of a 3 to where he can now be switching on ball screen actions with guards and with forwards. I think if Anasicki can be a 5-guard, a post player that can play a lot of minutes as a newcomer, I think that would be huge for the lineup because now you do have legitimate options to go big or small versus different opponents.
And John, one guy I'm looking forward to is Victor Bailey. If he's as good as advertised, if you got a point guard that can score, that can handle the team, that can guard the opposing point guard, if you can do those things, I think he can kind of separate himself from the other point guard potentials. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this guy can do.
One thing I'm going to be careful about this year, Tennessee has had 5-star players come in here before. And really Tobias Harris is the only one who came in and blew through as a legitimate one-and-done kind of guy.
And we lost in the first round.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But you look at last year, so much hype surrounded Josiah Jordan James, that then people were saying, well, he's not a 5-star. Well, not all of these 5-stars come in and hit the ground running. Some of them wind up being 5-stars their junior year or their sophomore year. Here's the thing, though. A lot of these guys that are 5-stars and come out and look like 5-stars as freshmen, they're doing it at a place like Kentucky or Duke where they're surrounded by other 4- and 5-stars. Is the depth of this roster, the quality of this roster, now getting to the point where a Keon Johnson comes in and, yes, you do expect him to be, oh yeah, that is a McDonald's that's the way a McDonald's All-American is supposed to look. In other words, is the depth of talent surrounding these guys enough now to where fans should expect some of these guys to come in and wow them immediately?
Well, I think it's coaches, every newcomer right now, coaches are going to talk about looks really good, right?
Right.
They're not going to say anything different than that when they're new. When players start talking about the way that they're talking about some of these guys, you kind of know. When you see a Keon Johnson, you know he's a 5-star. Now, things change when the lights come on. Things change when you get into SEC scouting reports and people know what you're good at and what you're not. It changes to that level. So they could be a 5-star now and portray that 5-star image, but things change throughout the season. And so if he doesn't have it, it's not give up on him after the first couple weeks because he is a special player.
All right, when we come back, I'm going to talk about last year's weaknesses. Are they going to be stronger this year? Are there any strengths of last year's team that we worry might not be as strong this year? We'll discuss that. Come on back on the Sports Source.